Unless it's like the thumbnail or something, I usually try not to reveal my thoughts on movies right away, but it's not hyperbole to say that I was very, very, very disappointed with Mickey 17. But at least it's got multiple Robert Pattinsons in it. Hi, welcome to Film Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell. Yeah, I know, like, this outfit kind of sucks, but this was like the best I could do to replicate the outfit from Mickey 17. Today we're talking about Bong Joon-ho's latest movie, Mickey 17. Based on the novel Mickey 7 by Ashton Edward, a disposable employee, Mickey, played by Robert Pattinson, is sent on a human expedition to colonize the ice world Niflheim. After one iteration dies, a new body is regenerated, with most of his memories intact. As I mentioned during my synopsis, this film was based on a novel by Edward Ashton. During an interview with Stephen Colbert, when Bong Joon-ho was asked, "Why'd you change the title? It was Mickey 7 and you made it Mickey 17. Bong Joon-ho and his translator stated that the reason they changed it was so that they could kill Mickey 10 more times. Whenever I saw that, I thought that was BS on IMDb, but sure enough, I looked up the clip. That's what he says. This movie deals with cloning, so yes, you do see multiple Robert Pattinsons. And Bong Joon-ho has stated that before certain scenes, he would just not tell Robert Pattinson which Mickey he was going to be. Find out for yourself. And that tactic was done just so it would create this sense of confusion over self-identity. I certainly think that's an interesting approach. I don't know. Have you tried acting? No, I'm kidding. That actually is kind of a neat fact. I think I knew this for a while, but after seeing this movie, I've become fully convinced that Robert Pattinson, I think, is my favorite actor currently working today, or at least one of them. Every new project he takes on, it's definitely very interesting. Even if I don't fully like what he does, I think that he is amongst the better thing that pops out of each of those movies. And same with Mickey 17. Even though I wasn't as crazy about the movie overall, he was the best part of it. This concept as a whole needed a really good calibered actor to carry the whole thing and to convince you that this is possible. With the visual effects, it really, really convinced me that Robert Pattinson was two sides of the same coin. He really did fantastic in this thing. I think it's also the fact that he put on such a ridiculous accent compared to what he normally sounds like too in this thing that really sucked you into his character, but he makes really bold decisions with that too. Man, I can't wait to see what he does next. Even Mark Ruffalo as the villain Kenneth Marshall gave a pretty interesting performance. It definitely was a caricature of modern American politics, Trump, but it fit within this really outlandish world that Bong Joon-ho presented, and I think the performance worked. But beyond that, I think that's where the rest of my review kind of falls into a mix here a little bit. Before we get into that, please like, share this video, comment below. Any help that you could give this channel would be greatly, greatly appreciated. My goal, at least for the middle of the year, is to get to 350, so if we can get there, I would greatly appreciate that. And now, let's get back to Mickey 17. I think that this world that Bong Joon-ho presented and the politics that are brought forward in terms of what human cloning would do with our society, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting how they kind of contrasted that with how politics are handled today. It was a bit scary at times seeing the philosophical versus the practical elements fighting each other out, whether it's morally right or not. It was really cool, but where it falls apart is I just don't think that this story was super focused on what it needed to be. It might have to do with the fact that it is from the point of view of Mickey, and because his perspective is so limited that you aren't able to fully grasp just the interesting angles you could have gone with this concept. I don't know just how much this movie deviates from the original novel. I just think that with the human cloning set within the not too distant future, that was enough for a movie. Robert Pattinson's performances carried it through. I think the debates that they presented was satirical, but it worked with a sci-fi setting. All the elements were there. And then because it deals with moving to another planet and there's living creatures on there that are in conflict with the humans. It just becomes another intergalactic story of fascism, which it's basically James Cameron's Avatar movies or all the other stories that do something very similar to this. You had something great and then just becomes another version of this thing we've already seen, but not as good. And they also address the themes of classism. If I'm just being honest, especially comparing it with Bong Joon-ho's other work, I feel like Parasite did it so much better in bringing the story down to these two families, broadening it to this intergalactic scale with clones and these alien worm things. It doesn't fully work and it kind of falls apart a little bit. And it's really such a shame because I really wanted to like this movie more. This was one of my most anticipated movies of 2025. I just couldn't get too attached to really anything beyond Robert Pattinson or the interesting performance that Ruffalo gave. All the characters beyond those two, they were just so uninteresting. It just was not that strong of a film, I feel. And between Mickey's backstory and the exposition of this world and jumping between these other side characters and not fully diving into their stories, but then they drop off the face of the earth and return later in a way that doesn't feel as satisfying. This movie just doesn't start. It doesn't really go anywhere, and it's disappointing. Like, the movie isn't bad, but just it's not even an expectations thing. I just think that this story was very cluttered and probably needed another draft done, or maybe it needed to follow closer to the book. It's hard to say. My question is, I wonder if this movie would have worked better if it were structured more traditionally. You remove the voiceover, set up this world with human cloning, then eventually you introduce the Mickey character, then tell it straightforward from there. I don't know if that would have worked better or if that would have felt more generic. I just feel like something else needed to be done because the final execution just doesn't hit. Do you know what that means? That means it's time for intermission! So I figured since the main conflict of this film has to do with like space worms, not like Dune space worms, but they're similar to Dune space worms, I figured I'd be having some gummy worms. Grab a couple here. What are the different flavors? Cherry, strawberry, mango, pineapple, lemon, orange, green apple, watermelon, pink, grapefruit, lime, blue, raspberry, or grape. Well, I think they all kind of taste the same. I'd give that like an 8 out of 10. Delicious. This is literally hell to watch. As I've stated before, the story, it just doesn't feel like it gets started. You go up to your car, you put in the key, nope, nope, and then you're going like 70 miles an hour all of a sudden. The ending, I feel, just rushes again. You think the movie properly wrapped itself up, it has another ending, and another ending, and another ending. You think it's gonna end, it has another ending. It kind of gets annoying. And don't get me wrong, I do appreciate tying up loose ends. I just feel like having the dream sequence, as well as the ceremony, as well as the big battle at the end, it either could have been restructured differently, or you could have removed some of this stuff. This movie's presentation, it is a 7 out of 10. I do like the world that Bong Joon-ho presents, and even the visual look of white, it is an interesting contrast, and it feels dull and gray in a way that works cinematically. But this story overall, it brings it down to a 6, like a 6 out of 10. This is a 6 out of 10. I really wish this was a little bit better, but this was just kind of a clunky movie, honestly. So for this week's recommendation, you could go with some of Bong Joon-ho's past work. You could do Parasite, you could do Okja, you could do Snowpiercer, you could do any of his work, and that probably would be better than Mickey 17. But instead, I actually am going to recommend something a little bit different. I would recommend René Lalo's 1973 French sci-fi film, Fantastic Planet. This is a really incredible film. It is full of very trippy imagery. It's kind of haunting in some ways. Could be a good double feature. It's also incredibly short, at about 72 minutes, so Even if you're kind of curious about it, but you don't want to like commit a lot of time to it, it's very short. I think that you guys would enjoy it if you gave it a shot. Well, that's all the time we have for today here on Film Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell, and if you excuse me, I gotta add to the stash.